T.I., you gotta tell that what you.
This is rapidly evolving into one of the most explosive rap feuds we've seen in years, with tensions escalating at a level that feels almost unstoppable. DJ Akademiks has now firmly inserted himself into the center of the storm between 50 Cent and T.I., dropping wave after wave of jaw-dropping revelations that are intensifying the situation even further. What initially looked like a routine back and forth between two legendary figures in hip-hop has now spiraled into something far more intense, a full-blown, documentary-level narrative that is beginning to peel back some of the most private, controversial, and tightly guarded aspects of T.I.'s past. And if you've been following hip-hop culture for any length of time, you already understand exactly what it means when 50 Cent decides to take a rivalry to this level. Things rarely stay controlled, and they almost always get personal. This very moment, the pressure is building at an incredible rate, and the drama is unfolding faster than anyone expected. So now it's time to break everything down piece by piece, step by step, how a rivalry that once felt completely buried has suddenly resurfaced with even greater intensity and higher stakes than ever before. But before diving headfirst into the current chaos, the relentless diss tracks flying back and forth, the documentary threats being used like strategic weapons, the deeply personal bars aimed to hit where it hurts the most, and Akademiks dissecting every move like a seasoned analyst calling the final moments of a championship fight, you need to completely reset your perspective and let go of everything you think you already know, because the truth is, this feud did not just come out of nowhere. It wasn't triggered by a single viral moment, a careless podcast remark, or a simple misunderstanding blown out of proportion. This rivalry has roots that run incredibly deep, years of tension quietly building beneath the surface, stretching back nearly 2 decades, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to erupt again. And without fully understanding that backstory, you're not seeing the full picture, only catching fragments, highlights, and surface-level drama instead of the complete narrative. So to really understand how we got here, we have to rewind to an era when both artists were at the absolute peak of their power, influence, and dominance within the hip-hop world. The conflict between T.I. and 50 Cent didn't emerge from a single flashpoint. It developed gradually over time, shaped by layers of rivalry, regional pride, competitive energy, subliminal shots, direct confrontations, serious allegations, and the undeniable clash of two dominant personalities, each determined to assert control and cement their legacy at the very top of the rap game.
So, my T.I., he's reacting to 50 Cent finally reacting to him.
Both artists stood completely unshaken, each absolutely convinced that they were the ones truly running the game, and neither showing even the slightest intention of backing down. It was Atlanta versus Queens, a cultural and musical collision waiting to happen. On one side stood T.I., the self-declared king of the South, and on the other was 50 Cent, a figure who had already reshaped the sound and business of hip-hop during the mid-2000s. On paper, there was no obvious reason for these two forces to collide, but in reality, a confrontation between them always felt inevitable. It was never about if it would happen, only when it would finally erupt. The foundation of this story really starts taking shape in 2007, a time when T.I. was operating at an extraordinary level. Following the release of King, his 4th studio album, he wasn't just successful, he was dominant. The project wasn't just music, it was a statement, a bold declaration that positioned him at the top and made it clear to the entire industry that the crown belonged to him unless someone was powerful enough to take it. At that point, he was moving with unstoppable momentum, racking up Grammy nominations, stacking platinum certifications, and earning a level of respect that many artists spend their entire careers chasing but never fully reach. Then came a moment that didn't explode immediately but quietly shifted the entire energy. During an interview on Hot 97 with Angie Martinez, 50 Cent chose his words carefully, but the message underneath was impossible to ignore. He never directly named T.I., keeping things indirect in a way that made it even more calculated, but he openly challenged the concept of self-proclaimed titles. He questioned how any artist could simply label themselves king, raising a deeper point about who really has the authority to grant that status. According to him, that power belonged to the fans, not the artists themselves. Even back in 2007, the reaction was immediate. Hip-hop forums, blogs, and online communities quickly connected the dots, interpreting the statement as a subtle but intentional shot aimed straight at T.I. And T.I. himself didn't miss it either. Nothing that significant ever slipped past him. Still, at that stage, it felt more like a calculated warning, a light jab meant to test the waters rather than ignite a full-scale war. But everything intensified in 2008, when things stopped being subtle and started becoming direct. With the release of the G-Unit track You So Tough, the tone shifted completely. Around that same time, T.I. was dealing with a serious federal case involving machine guns, silencers, and charges that carried the potential for a long prison sentence. Instead, the outcome was far less severe than many expected. That's where 50 Cent stepped in and turned up the pressure. Known for building his image on authenticity and street credibility, he used the situation to fuel controversy, openly questioning how the case was resolved the way it was, and placing T.I.'s circumstances under a harsh spotlight that only added more tension to an already volatile situation.
T.I., you gotta tell that nigga what you do to him.
The narrative didn't just grow, it completely took on a life of its own. Rumors began spreading rapidly, suggesting that T.I., also known as Tip, had cooperated in order to secure his deal, and that accusations stuck to his name like a permanent shadow. It became one of those controversies that refused to fade, lingering in hip-hop conversations for years and resurfacing whenever his credibility was brought into question. But if there's one thing consistent about T.I., it's that he has never been the type to stay quiet when his reputation is on the line. Fast forward to 2010, and the tension was reignited under even more serious circumstances. T.I. and his wife Tiny found themselves caught up in a drug case involving pills and marijuana, an incident that ultimately resulted in T.I. receiving an additional 11 months in prison for violating parole. At that moment, 50 Cent stepped right back into the conversation as if no time had passed, reopening old wounds and amplifying the controversy. He publicly questioned why Tiny hadn't taken responsibility for the charges, a statement that instantly added fuel to an already sensitive situation. T.I. didn't let that slide. He responded directly, addressing the remarks head-on in a Vibe magazine cover story, making it clear that certain lines shouldn't be crossed. It was a calculated but firm response, drawing boundaries while pushing back against the narrative being built around him. 50 Cent, staying true to his usual playbook, fired back through Twitter, offering his own interpretation of events to the public and keeping the tension alive in real time. Eventually, through mutual connections behind the scenes, the situation cooled off. The back and forth faded, and 50 Cent even went on record with Vibe saying the issue had been resolved. For a long stretch, it genuinely felt like the rivalry had finally run its course, like both sides had moved on and left the past where it belonged. Then, almost unexpectedly, everything resurfaced a decade later. During the global shutdown caused by COVID-19, the world slowed down, but entertainment found a new lane. That's when Versus emerged, the live battle series created by Timbaland and Swizz Beatz, quickly turning into a cultural powerhouse. Artists went head-to-head on Instagram Live, playing their biggest hits in real time and letting their catalogs speak for themselves. It became one of the defining moments of that era, competitive and driven entirely by legacy. And right on cue, T.I. saw an opportunity and took it. On July 6, 2020, which also happened to be 50 Cent's 45th birthday, Tip went live on Instagram and issued a direct, unmistakable challenge, a 20-track Versus battle, face-to-face. This wasn't just casual, it was strategic. He even brought up the historic clash between Kanye West and 50 Cent, referencing their legendary album sales showdown, a moment that 50 himself later admitted marked a turning point in his career. It was bold, calculated, and layered with meaning. On the surface, it sounded like respect, but underneath, it carried a clear message: step up, go hit for hit, and prove once and for all who truly holds the stronger legacy.
I literally can't tell if these are all at
50 Cent had absolutely no interest in entertaining the idea, not even slightly. He didn't just decline the challenge from T.I., he openly laughed it off, brushing it aside like it wasn't even worth consideration. In later interviews, he went a step further, downplaying the entire Versus wave and suggesting that the concept lost its value once the world started returning to normal. There was no battle, no back and forth through music, just 50 staying firmly in his own lane, moving on his own terms, completely unfazed by the pressure or public demand. But T.I. never truly let it go. Instead, he kept the conversation alive, bringing it up repeatedly on radio platforms, in interviews, and during public appearances treating it like unfinished business that still needed a final resolution. Speaking in February 2026 on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, he revealed that behind the scenes, while both artists were performing in Los Angeles, there had actually been an agreement in place to make the battle happen. According to T.I., everything was aligned until 50 later shifted direction publicly. Whether that's the complete truth or just one side of the story remains unclear, but what is undeniable is that the Versus challenge never truly disappeared. It stayed lingering in the background, unresolved and quietly building tension. By February 2026, the situation escalated into something far more intense. Everything erupted during the rollout of Kill the King. On February 6, 2026, T.I. appeared on the Nightcap podcast alongside Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson, where he spoke openly and directly. He claimed he had been trying to lock in the battle for years and accused 50 Cent of deliberately avoiding the matchup. In his view, it wasn't scheduling or timing, it was reluctance. He made it clear, he believed 50 simply didn't want that level of confrontation. 50 heard everything, but instead of responding with music or words, he responded with strategy. He took to Instagram and posted old Crime Stoppers footage along with courtroom clips tied to a 2006 case involving someone from T.I.'s circle. The caption alone was enough to set the internet on fire. With that single move, the entire situation shifted from competitive tension into something deeply personal and far more serious. T.I. didn't hesitate to respond. He pushed back strongly, insisting that only one of them had real paperwork circulating publicly, and claimed he had proof to support his position. As the exchanges intensified, the tone became sharper, more direct, and increasingly personal. Then, on February 22, with tensions already at a boiling point, 50 escalated things even further, posting an unflattering image of Tiny on Instagram, dragging her into the situation and pushing the rivalry into an even more heated and volatile space.
The hottest diss songs is the most disrespectful. That's the hottest bar.
According to 50 Cent, his intentions were never rooted in outright disrespect. He framed his actions as a response, claiming he was simply reacting to T.I. repeatedly bringing his name into the spotlight and wanted the narrative to come to an end. But once it hit the internet, the reaction took on a completely different life. Online audiences didn't see it as a neutral response, they viewed it as a direct and calculated shot at Tip's family, especially Tiny and his son King Harris. There was no time for explanations, no room for context. The backlash was instant. King Harris wasted no time responding, and he didn't hold back. He escalated things immediately, crossing into deeply personal territory by bringing up 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina Jackson, who tragically passed away in a house fire. That single move shifted the tone of the entire situation almost overnight. What had been a heated rivalry suddenly became something far more emotional, intense, and unpredictable. 50 responded in the way he's become known for, leaning fully into humor, sarcasm, and calculated trolling.